Welcome to Life Partner by Casey Lee. This is The Dating Files, a series that examines real relationship dynamics with honesty and care. It started with small things. She left out the part about how strongly she felt about her work, and not because she was ashamed of it, but because she had once been told that she could come across as intense, and she didn't want that to be her first impression. So she softened her opinion about something political when she sensed that he didn't quite share it, just enough to avoid the friction of a difference that she wasn't ready to navigate yet. She laughed at something that she found mildly annoying because it seemed easier than explaining why it wasn't funny to her. She was available when he reached out, even on evenings that she had planned to keep for herself, because canceling felt like a risk that she wasn't willing to take. None of it felt significant at the time. It felt like being considerate, like being flexible, like understanding that early dating required a kind of careful presentation, that you put your best self forward as everyone advised and let the fuller picture emerge gradually once there was enough trust. His name was Alex. He was sharp and engaging, and she was genuinely drawn to him in the beginning. The conversations were interesting. The early dates had a quality of real exchange that she valued. But as the weeks passed, she noticed something that she couldn't quite name at first. The conversations, while still pleasant, had begun to feel slightly thin. And not because he had changed, because she had, or rather because the version of herself that she was bringing to the dynamic had narrowed considerably from who she actually was. She was showing up reliably and showing up pleasantly, showing up in the careful, curated form that she had decided was most likely to be well received. It was working in a limited sense. He was still interested. He kept initiating. By most external measures, things were going fine. But something wasn't growing. The connection had reached a certain level and plateaued there. And she could feel it, like a ceiling she couldn't break through, a quality of the interaction that was pleasant without deepening. And the reason she was beginning to understand was that there wasn't enough of her actually in it for it to go anywhere real. She had edited herself so consistently in so many small ways that what he was relating to was a carefully managed impression, not a fabrication because everything she had shown him was true, but it was true in the way that a highlight reel is true, which is accurate in its details and fundamentally incomplete as a full representation. There's a particular loneliness to this experience that's hard to describe from outside it. You're with someone. The interaction is warm and consistent and seems by all surface measures to be working. And yet you still feel unseen, not because he's failing to look, but because what you've offered him to see isn't fully you. The loneliness isn't his doing. It's the natural consequence of a gap between who you are and who you have decided to present. She started to examine honestly why she had been editing, and what she found wasn't a single reason, but a cluster of them, all operating quietly at the same time. There was the fear of being too much, too opinionated, too driven, too particular about things in ways that might read as difficult. There was the learned understanding absorbed from various sources over the years that the right way to navigate early dating was to be easy and warm and not too complicated, to let the real complexity emerge once someone was already attached enough to receive it. And there was the specific anxiety of the situation. She liked him more than she had let herself say directly, and that investment made the editing feel necessary, because the more it mattered, the more carefully she managed herself, because the more she had to lose. And what she understood sitting with this was that the editing and the investment had been working in direct opposition to each other. The more she liked him, the less of herself she brought. And the less of herself she brought, the less he was actually relating to her, which meant that the connection, for all its surface consistency, was built on increasingly thin material. She made a decision, not announced, but just internal. She was going to start letting more of herself into the room. The first time that she expressed a genuine opinion that she knew might not land perfectly, she felt the familiar pull to soften it midway through. She didn't, though. And he engaged with it, not with complete agreement, with real engagement. The kind that required her to actually be there rather than just being pleasant. The first time that she mentioned something that she cared about with the actual intensity she felt for it, she watched for the sign that it was too much, but it wasn't. He leaned forward. The first time she said she was tired and couldn't make that evening work, instead of rearranging everything to be available, she said it simply, suggested another time, and let him respond. And he suggested a time the very next day without missing a beat. The connection didn't plateau after those moments. It moved. And not because she had done something strategic, but because there was suddenly more of her in it, more actual material for something real to develop from. She understood something now that she wished she had understood at the beginning, which is that self-editing in early dating doesn't protect the connection, it limits it. And the version of you that's been carefully managed for someone else's approval is the one version that cannot be genuinely chosen because it isn't actually you. And being chosen for a version of yourself that you have constructed to be acceptable is not the same as being chosen. It's closer to being approved of. And approval, however consistent, does not feel the same as being known. The editing felt like it was protecting the relationship, but it was actually preventing it. And what she had wanted this whole time, was to actually be seen and actually be chosen. And that required the thing that felt most risky, which was showing up as herself, with all of the complexity and conviction and particular texture of who she actually was, and letting him decide from there. That kind of presence is not a risk to the right connection. It's what makes it possible. What this episode points to is something that can be very hard to see from inside it. The way that self-editing, however well-intentioned, quietly limits what a connection can actually become. And if that's landing, I want to invite you to two places. The first is the free workshop, where I go deeper into what genuine presence in early dating actually looks and feels like, and how to build the kind of connection that has somewhere real to go. The link is in the show notes. And if you want to continue this in the private podcast, where I go into where the editing instinct actually comes from and what it takes to move through it, that continuation is waiting for you also in the show notes. This conversation is complete as it is. I'm really glad you're here. Stay steady and aligned with the relationship that you want.